Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue sur IFC, Irwin's French Class. Aujourd'hui, today, in this video, dans cette vidéo, we are going to talk about the ER verbs in French, such as aimer, parler ou travailler. They belong to the first group of verbs in French. There are 3 in total, and the ER verbs represent most of the verbs in French. In this video, we are going to learn how to conjugate them in the present tense. You will see that there is a very distinctive and easy pattern in their conjugation. We are then going to work on vocabulary and make a list of very common and useful ER verbs, and I will also give you some tips to get the pronunciation right all the time. As usual, at the end of the video, we will do some fun activities together to revise and practice. C'est parti! Regular verbs are groups of verbs that follow a predictable pattern of conjugation. In French, there are 3 groups of verbs in total. The first one represents the largest, by far, group of regular verbs. They are identifiable by their infinitives ending in ER, such as parler or aimer. The infinitive is the non-conjugated form of the verb. For example, travailler, which means to work, or étudier, which is to study. But as soon as we add a subject to it, for example, I study, the verb becomes conjugated. So most French verbs ending in ER that you may already know and that we used in previous videos, except for aller, which is an exception, okay, aller, to go. They are all conjugated in the present tense by dropping the ER to form the stem, which is called the radical in French. And to that stem, you will need to add specific endings corresponding to the subject. So let's take, for example, the verb parler, which means to talk. The first step consists of dropping ER to find out the radical, or stem in English. For parler, this is parle. And believe me or not, but this is the hardest part of the process. All you need to do from there is adding the corresponding ending of the subject. By the way, if this concept of subject is still a bit unclear to you, I suggest you watching or rewatching my video covering the subject pronouns. So here are the endings. Simply add them to the stem of the verb and you obtain its conjugation in the present tense. So let's cover the conjugation of parler together. Écouter, focus on my mouth, and répéter. Je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle, on parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, il parle, elle parle. Very good. So this is the conjugation pattern of parler in the present tense. But what is the present tense? In English, it can be expressed in 3 different ways, which all correspond to a single verb in French. For example, je travaille can be translated as I work, I am working, or I do work. Nous étudions can be translated as we study, we are studying, or we do study. And here are some regular, super useful ER verbs that you may already know or may need to learn. Aimer, chanter, danser, dîner, écouter, étudier, fermer, inviter, habiter, jouer, regarder, travailler, visiter. And all of those are regular, they will follow the same pattern as we just did for parler. Now let's consider the verb habiter, which means to live, is the one you use when you say I live in Marseille, for example. J'habite à Marseille. Okay? So let's follow the same pattern and conjugate it at the present tense. So here's the stem, habite. Remember, you need to drop ER at the end. So that's the very first step. Habite, to which we are going to add the endings. The process is strictly the same, but be careful with verbs starting with either a vowel or an H, like habite. At the je form, look at the je form here. You will need to drop the E and add an apostrophe. This is called an elision, une elision. Okay? This is a very recurring phonetic phenomenon in French. Instead of saying je habite, the pronunciation is east as j'habite. Same will go for j'aime, j'étudie, for these two verbs that start with vowels, okay, A and E. J'aime, j'étudie. Please note that for those verbs, a liaison must be made for nous, vous, il, and elle plural forms. If the concept of liaison is a bit unclear to you, I send you back to the video on the French sounds, okay, where we covered it. So basically there will be a Z sound between the last consonant of the nous, vous, il, elle forms and the start of the verb, okay? Nous aimons, you hear the Z sound, nous aimons. Vous habitez, same with verbs starting with an H, okay, same principle. Ils écoutent, elles étudient. Now let's do a bit of vocab together and you will see that you know more verbs than you think. Most English verbs ending with ate were French ER verbs that were borrowed into English. For example, limiter and décorer. Other cognate patterns, those are words that are very similar in both languages, are also very noticeable. Iser in French equals eyes in English. For example, utiliser, improviser, catégoriser, moderniser, and so on. Fier equals faille. For example, défier, identifier, glorifier, diversifier, justifier, and so on. In terms of pronunciation, all the endings except for nous and vous forms are silent. So they're going to be pronounced exactly the same way. So let's cover together the verb écouter, okay? So focus on my mouth and repeat. J'écoute, tu écoutes, il écoute, elle écoute, on écoute, ils écoutent, elles écoutent. Here is a very useful and easy to remember tip for the correct pronunciation. These forms, they all correspond to the stem of which you pronounce the final letter. For example, écoute, that was the stem. That was écoute throughout. Same pronunciation for je, tu, il, elle, on, and il and elle plural forms. Alright, let's cover together the verb aimer. So you remove ER, that's your stem that you pronounce up to the final letter. Aime, j'aime, tu aimes, il aime, elle aime, on aime, ils aiment, elles aiment. All these forms are pronounced the same way. Same for regarder, you drop ER, you are left out with regarde. You need to pronounce the final letter, regarde. Je regarde, tu regardes, il regarde, elle regarde, on regarde, il regarde, elle regarde. Same pronunciation. Rely on context to distinguish between il singular and il plural, and same goes for elle singular and elle plural. You will hear a difference only with verbs beginning with a vowel or an H, since there will be a liaison as mentioned before, alright? So there will be no difference between il dîne, elle dîne in terms of phonetic. In written, it's another deal. Elle chante, elle chante. Strictly the same pronunciation. But here the difference for il habite, ils habitent, elle aime, elles aiment. So here you make the distinction with the liaison, with the Z sound in between. The on ending of the nous form is the nasal sound on. Nous regardons. Let's repeat that. Nous chantons. Nous visitons. So we discussed the nasal sounds in the previous video on the sounds of French. E of the vous form is the E sound. So let's repeat these. Vous regardez, you need to finish with the E sound. Vous chantez, vous visitez, all end with the E sound. Alright guys, now let's do some fun activities to revise and practice these points together. All you need to do is to conjugate the verbs in brackets with the right ending and then pronounce it. Let's start with the first sentence. So you see the verb in brackets, you need to conjugate that one appropriately with the il form. So what's the ending is going to be? E, that's right. How is it pronounced? Il habite à Marseille. Very good. Il habite à Marseille. Number 2. Étudier, it's the verb. So how is it going to be pronounced? Nous étudions à l'université. That's very good. The on sound at the end. Nous étudions. Okay, next sentence. Regarder is the verb. Elle, plural form. Elle regarde la télévision. That's very good. Next sentence. Inviter is the verb to invite. Ils invitent leurs amis au restaurant. That's really good. Écouter is the verb of the next phrase. Tu écoutes de la musique. That's good. Aimer is the next verb. J'aime le chocolat. Yes. And I hope that you didn't forget the Elision, dropping the E at the je form and replacing it with an apostrophe. J'aime le chocolat. Okay, next sentence. On chante au karaoké. The E ending again. That's very good. Parler is the next verb. Elle parle français. That's very good. Travailler is the next verb. Vous travaillez. That's good. Vous travaillez tous les jours. Perfect, guys. Ok, c'est tout les amis pour cette vidéo. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you are now able to conjugate any ER verb that you are given. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you want to support my work and help me produce more content for your learning. Au revoir, salut, à bientôt, ciao.